So let's dive in. Engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6346 or 65. Yes, 6346. These numbers get combobulated after I say them day after day. Signed into law today by Governor Bob Ferguson. It is the law of the land now. Washington has, for the very first time, an income tax, despite the fact that it is not allowed by our state constitution, according to opponents. That's going to play out in the courts. This was Governor Bob Ferguson today as he entered the morning bill signing to loud cheers and applause from supporters in the state reception room. He didn't use the regular office of the governor for bill signings. They wanted a grander setting, more room, because they brought a lot of people in support. And of course, there was a throng of media. Many of them that were there in support were union folks in the purple and in the red. There, they were all handed signs, various signs in support of the income tax, that it supports small business. Other signs said this is about working families. Others said this is about children. So that's what the signs read as folks came in. And then you can hear, I think in this video, you can hear, it's faint, but you can hear it in the background, a couple of the opponents who were allowed into the event, but they didn't stay long. I should tell you, I overheard a conversation as Tim Iman and a couple others were at the very front of the line to get in, were then told, you got to go to the back of the line now and go through security, because they were, making sure that it was safe. Some of these more high profile, obviously volatile bill signings, you end up having to go through security. Reporters not don't usually have to do that, but everybody else does, and make sure you're not bringing a weapon in. So Tim Iman and a couple of the folks with him were pushed to the back of the line, and I heard the woman tell him, we're going to fill the room with supporters first, and if there's room for others, you'll be allowed in. So obviously he did get in, or somebody got in to scream against this bill. So here's how it looked when Governor Bob Ferguson first arrived and began to speak, and you could hear some of that opposition in the back of the room.
It takes a lot of collaboration and just really appreciate all the hard work. And
Now, as he spoke, Governor Ferguson brought up lawmakers who championed the income tax, which again is a 9.9% tax on income or combined household income above $1 million starting in 2028. And one of those he brought up to speak was House Majority Leader Joe Fitzgibbon.
This is much more than a millionaire's tax bill. This is a tax reform bill at a time when so many Washington families are struggling to make ends meet. We are going to make it a more affordable place to live and a better place to work and to do business. In addition to asking our wealthiest neighbors, the people who have done so extraordinarily well in our thriving tech-based economy, we're also making it more affordable for families to afford diapers for babies and for adults, to afford Tylenol, to afford soap and shampoo. We're also making it more affordable for small businesses by eliminating the B&O tax obligation for tens of thousands of small businesses in our state, lowering business and occupation tax for healthcare providers, uh, eliminating sales tax on services, which we've heard from businesses big and small, from local governments, from school districts, from nonprofits, is a big step towards making it easier for them to comply with our tax code, lightening the load on them as well.
Now, a couple others who came up to speak in support ahead of the governor signing finally that bill. One of them was a Seattle restaurant employee who said the income tax on the wealthy, he believes, is about making life better for everyday Washingtonians. And there is some tax relief for small business. So we're going to tax the wealthy and give some tax relief to smaller income businesses. Whether you agree with that or not, there is some relief in there for small business. And he said that's going to really help him and the business that he works for in Seattle, a Beacon Hill restaurant. And I spoke with this gentleman after the bill was signed today.
This was 100 years in the making of the most regressive tax system, I think, in the country. And so to see a long overdue step taken in narrowing this wealth gap is huge for not only the state, but so many underrepresented communities.
I also spoke with another gentleman who got up there just ahead of the governor's signature and said, I'm going to pay this tax. I'm happy to pay this tax. He said it's about being a contributor of his fair share. He says he's wished all along that he could pay more. He's an AI executive. Here's what he told me about his support for the income tax just after the bill was signed.
So I work in AI and I know where the world is headed. And a tremendous amount of income and wealth is going to flow from all over the world into our tech-centered economy and into our household for that matter. And so when I said in my testimony, this is a generational opportunity. It's almost like we're Alaska before the gold rush. But it's as if we would refuse to tax gold, right? We should be taxing the income and wealth that's going to be created over the next decade for the benefit of everybody in the States. But it's also, so the benefit of us in tech too. Like we need educated workers, right? If we want to grow. We're part of a community and, just because you can afford whatever you want from private sector doesn't mean you live outside of the public sector, right? If you're a multi-billionaire, maybe you can, build your own park or fund your own symphony. But we're a part of a neighborhood and a community, and we care about the parks, we care about the schools, and we care about the small businesses because we're hustlers. My understanding is it's only a 1930s 5-4 decision that thinks that income is property that was in the state. And if you look at what federal income tax is considered an excise tax. So I think, we've had an oddball opinion on the books for a long time. And I think it's time for that to come go away.
And again, before the bill was signed into law today, Citizen Action Defense Fund announced a legal challenge is coming. In fact, likely to be officially filed later this week. And former Attorney General Rob McKenna has partnered with Citizen Action Defense Fund to lead the charge in this battle. So here is CADF Executive Director Jackson Maynard, who spoke with me just outside the legislative building after this morning's bill signing.
What's in store is that we have hired Rob McKenna to file a lawsuit. That lawsuit will be filed within days. And we will be challenging this unconstitutional income tax that the governor just signed into law. As Rob outlined in his memo that was given to the legislature, that was unfortunately ignored by the legislature and the governor, the state constitution has a uniformity requirement for any taxes on property, as well as a cap on 1%. This clearly violates that. And so those will be the arguments, among others, that we make in the lawsuit when we file it within the next few days. What I'm hearing is there's a lot of fear about this tax that's justified not only from the people, the businesses and the business owners that are in the process of moving from the state, but also for just people in the state who are concerned that this is not going to just be limited to the folks identified in the bill, but this is going to become a statewide income tax that is going to affect everybody.
Again, it will be along with CADF, former AG Rob McKenna, who they have retained to lead this constitutional challenge to the state's first income tax. Again, likely to be filed, that legal challenge later this week. And McKenna, in today's press release, where they were announcing that legal action said in part, I want to put up this graphic. Our state constitution is clear, and the courts have been equally clear for nearly a century. Income is property, and progressive income taxes are unconstitutional under existing law. They're preparing that challenge in court. Now, it was perhaps notable that when this bill signing ended today, there were no questions for reporters. This reporter, as I'm sure other reporters who were in attendance, had some pointed questions for the governor. He did not receive our questions today. Instead, he turned around to supporters and was taking selfies and signing autographs and, basically just celebrating the passage and the signing into law of the state's first income tax today. We will be at tomorrow's bill signing. There are a number of bills yet to be signed in these last days of the period that the governor has to sign up until April the 2nd. So we're going to be there and attempt to get our questions answered by Governor Ferguson, as we were not able to get a question in today.